Luke 22, verse 32 says, "But I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren." You know what? God is saying that, hey, you may fail in life. You might have failed in life, but the Lord is ready to always pick you up and turn you around, dust you off, and say, I forgive you, and I want to restore you, and I want to do a great thing within your life. And that's awesome. So when it came to Naomi, when we feel like a failure like Naomi, will say, call me Mara, be encouraged this morning. Because God's saying you're not a failure and you don't have to stay that way. You can still be pleasantness. Number 2, our true purpose we find in verses 15 through 18. And she said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people, to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. And the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. Verse 18. Well, when she saw that she was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking to her. In other words, she stopped telling her to go back home. Naomi was telling Ruth, Ruth, go back with your sister-in-law. Go back with her. Go back home. I have nothing to offer you. There's nothing that I could do for you. Go back. And notice, if Naomi was a failure, if Naomi was actually somebody that was not up to par, then I would not have imagined that Ruth would have said, hey, I am going with you no matter what. You know what? She says, I am willing to leave my God. I'm willing to leave my country. I'm willing to leave my citizenship. I'm willing to leave my friends. I'm willing to leave it all, Naomi, Ruth is telling her, because you're not a failure and I want to follow you. You know, Ruth forever burned her bridges as a Moabite. And she came under the wings of the Lord, her God now, Israel, for her refuge. Naomi must have been lovable. Naomi must have been a loving person for Ruth to have said these words to her. Naomi's life was obviously a witness to Ruth. You know, Proverbs 31:30 says, when it comes down to it, a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And boy, there was something about Naomi's life. Ruth even takes this love and relationship not only to her grave by saying, if anything but death departs me and you, in other words, I'm willing to die here with you. But she goes even beyond the grave. After she stepped out of the deathbed into the presence of God, she said, your God, Naomi, shall be my God. What a testimony is that? How awesome it is that Naomi had such a godly influence within this young lady's life. How is your influence within the people's lives around you? Men, do you influence those around you to godliness? Ladies, do you influence those around you for godliness? Parents, a parent's true purpose is to lead her son or her daughter to God and keep them there, cultivating them in the Lord, giving them examples of how to live godly lives, showing them what it is to have a relationship with the Lord. And Naomi's relationship with God was so impressive upon Ruth that Ruth is saying, I want your God to be my God. I want my lifestyle to be like your lifestyle. And gang, whether or not your children tell that to you, guess what? In most cases, that's exactly what you get. That's exactly what they become. You know, the chain of a prayer can link her child to God, somebody once said. Proverbs 22:6, which is our kids club's model scripture, says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Mom, Dad, are you doing this right now? Are you waiting on tomorrow to be the influencer, to pray for your children, to lead them to Christ, to talk to them about the Lord? Are you waiting for them to come to Sunday school? They'll get it at Sunday school, Pastor Adam. We'll just let them get it there. You know what? Are you waiting for them to become a teenager? Gang, before you know it, they're going to be off to college. And at that point, you're going to try to say, hey, let me tell you how you should live outside of this home. Keep on praying. So our true purpose is to lead a godly life for our children. Number 3, a parent's self-sacrificing. We find here, if you will, with me, go to Naomi chapter 3, or Ruth chapter 3. Notice here in verse 1, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, she's talking to Ruth, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? You see, before she said this to Ruth, she was telling Ruth and them, hey, you know what? I want to be able to help you out here with this one guy. And she's out there telling her, hey, I want to be able to seek your welfare. Shall I not seek security for you? You know, parents self-sacrificing. She was willing to sacrifice herself for her kid, Ruth. You know, I think about that. Parents' life is like a life filled with sacrifice. Have you noticed that? It's a life filled of sacrifice. And oftentimes, you might be sacrificing your career. You might have wanted an awesome career in life, but because I want to pour into my children, I'm going to have to sacrifice that. You might have been, maybe it might be where you had to make sacrifices financially or things that you wanted to purchase for yourself, but rather for me, I'm going to go ahead and give this to my children. You know, you might find yourself having a sacrifice, and here Naomi is actually telling Ruth, hey, my security and what I want, it's no concern to me. What is in concern to me is you and your welfare. You know, I once read this card that said to his parent, now that we have a mature adult relationship, there's something I like to tell you. You're still the first person I think of when I fall down and go boom. You know, it's something that when we can become unselfish, and especially when it comes to our children. Selfless love is a trait of a true parent. Selfless love is what Naomi was willing to do. And selfless love you might have to be when it comes to your kids. You might have to give up something in order for them to have a true meaning of what God is all about within your life. It's all about selfless love. And finally, number 4, we find when it comes to Naomi, a parent's bountiful blessing. We're going to look here with me, and let's look here at chapter 4 now. Verse 1. Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there. Now Boaz is the guy who was checking out Ruth, and Boaz and Ruth have eyes together, and now Boaz, he wants to marry her, but we'll see what happens here. So Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, come aside, friend, sit down here. So he came aside and he sat down, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sir, sit down here. So they sat down. Then he said to the close relative, Naomi has come back from the country of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. And I thought to inform you, saying, buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you would not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it. And I am next after you. And he said, I will redeem it. Gang, here's what's happening. And you got to understand, and we kind of learned this again as we went into Genesis. And if you remember, let me remind you, remember back in the day with Judah? Back in the day, Judah had a son. He had 3 sons. The oldest son got married to a young lady. And when he got married to this young lady, he died. And then after that, since there was no kids, then it was a law of the land that the next of kin had to marry his wife and have children. So she went ahead and married the second brother. And as she married the second brother, he died. Well, there was a third one. And remember, we kind of made fun of the third guy's name. His name was Sheila. And I think they probably wanted a girl, but they had a boy, Sheila. Well, Judah said, there's no possible way that you're going to touch my Sheila right now. He's too young. Go back to your country. But the reason why they did it was because back in the day, that if the oldest didn't have children, or if he owned anything, then the youngest one had to marry them,